It is a busy day for President Biden. This morning, he spoke to the nation's governors, and this afternoon, he's hosting the Brazilian president at the White House.
That's right. The two leaders are expected to focus on strengthening democracy. This meeting comes after thousands of rioters stormed the Brazilian capital just last month. They were aiming to oust the newly inaugurated president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now with more. Hi there, Weijia. So that riot in Brazil last month drew comparisons to January 6th. In the wake of that, what solutions to this kind of political violence are Biden and Lula expected to discuss today?
Well, Elaine, it was after that attack that President Biden actually, had a conversation with President Lula and invited him here to the White House because, as you mentioned, it almost seemed like a copycat riot when you look at the images and when you hear from the rioters in Brazil about why they were protesting. They were claiming that the election was rigged. They were supporters of the former President Bolsonaro, who notably was a huge fan of former President Trump's. And so they, had a lot to talk about and will do so today. And they, vowed to reject political extremism and have conversations about democracy, about, elections, about the fact that, these two groups rioted in the way they did in a, very comparable way. So in addition to that, though, they have a lot on their agenda to talk about the economy, to talk about Brazil's recommitment to global issues. And so it will be a very packed meeting.
And separate from that event at the White House today, the president's also experiencing a bit of criticism now, I understand from some Democrats even, over his handling of the Chinese spy balloon incident from the past week. There was a Senate hearing yesterday where some comments were made. Update us on that and how the White House is responding.
Well, the Defense Department is doubling down, and so is the White House. Officials testified that, at the time when the balloon initially entered the U.S. airspace, they didn't know what would happen if they just shot it down right away. They say they didn't have the modeling to understand the sort of impact that would have on the ground, and they were concerned that even though when it initially came in, it was over a remote part of Alaska, that there could still be casualties because they didn't understand the debris field if they were to bring it down right away. So the White House continues to defend its decision to wait. They also say that, this way they're able to collect really valuable information about the capabilities of this balloon. We know that they have already recovered bits and pieces, but the actual surveillance portion, that equipment is still on the ocean floor. And officials testify that, they were really concerned that if they just took it down without planning more, without really understanding where it would go, that they may not be able to collect the remnants, which is really important to their intelligence mission to understand what this balloon was here for. We now know that apparently it was trying to monitor nuclear command and control communications. So certainly the president says that, this balloon had to come down.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly eye-opening to hear that news. Weijia, I also want to ask you about a personnel development. White House Communications Director Kate Bedington is departing after serving in that position since the inauguration. What will that change mean for how the White House communicates with the public?
So I don't think this change is part of any effort to shake things up in the communications department. Kate Bedingfield was a deputy campaign manager for the president's election campaign, and I think she's expected to have a strategic role in his re-election campaign, which of course he hasn't formally announced yet, but we were always expecting Kate to leave. In fact, she said herself that she would probably leave after a year, so she stayed much longer than anticipated. And her replacement is Ben LaBolt. He has already had a role here in the administration when the Supreme Court nominations and confirmation was happening for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. He was brought in to be the official spokesperson for that, to handle all media inquiries. And he was an advisor to former President Obama. So this is someone who the current president knows well, has worked with before, and so he'll be taking the reins. And in terms of how that will affect how the White House communicates to us, I don't think there will be any huge changes, but, you know, different communications directors have different strategies that might impact the messaging of what they're trying to tell the American public.
All right, Weijia Jiang at the White House for us. Weijia, thank you.
Thank you, Weijia.
You're welcome.